You're listening to Accent Amazing, where we combine language, linguistics, and history to help you improve your pronunciation and make your accent amazing. Actually, you know what? I think you said wrong just now, or long, or something like that. But let's talk about that, because that's part of the cot-caught merger, but it's not the same as in the UK, because they have long, right? And then they have caught, right? So, but you'd say long and caught with the same vowel, but in the UK, and maybe I'm not right about the history, but like I would imagine that a lot of the stuff that we get here in the US has a more conservative version back in the UK, and you would assume that this, sound A might shift, and all the sounds all the words that have that sound shift along with it. But then, caught and long in British English are two different vowels, but they're the same here. And then other sounds change to ah as well.
So the reason for that specifically is obviously like today's standard received pronunciation, British English is, let's say broadly speaking, based on London English. Obviously received pronunciation has a lot of stuff going on with it. But most North American English speakers, going back to colonial times, didn't really come from London. They came from parts of the English-speaking world outside of London proper. So they're actually importing sisters to London English. They're not direct ancestors of it. So for example, if the vowel system of London shakes out one way, there's no guarantee that people coming from up north will have done the same thing. And we know, in fact, by looking at like Scottish English or Scots, and if we want to get really far afield, the vowel system is different. It's completely different. And so when English speakers were coming to the early United States, the British colonies in North America, yes, some of them were importing London English, obviously, but lots of them weren't. And so as the dialects began to form in early North America, they weren't just importing the London vowel system and changing it.
So are you saying that this system that we have right now in the northeast of the US is actually it exists in the UK
somewhere? So it's referred to as the trap-bath split in the United Kingdom.
Is this the one with long and...
No, that's the short A. The trap-bath split is the short A system originally. Now, the British version is different. It's not the same. I think everyone agrees that the British trap-bath split is the progenitor of the Mid-Atlantic short A system. In terms of the cot-long or caught-long kind of split that you're talking about, the phenomenon here is really, how do you treat these vowels before nasals?
How about off as opposed to off? Because in the UK it's off. And here it's coffee and off.
The aw vowel.
How about toffee or toffee, or which one's which?
So yeah, that's a good question actually. I think for most speakers of North American English, this is not a native word. By which I mean it's not a word that they learn during this sort of critical period when they're very, very young. I think, and you can actually, I have a PhD in linguistics. I think it's toffee in England, right? You can tell that I'm not familiar.
Well, they do have, I know they have like a,
right?
No, not with an ah, it's
aw.
It's hot, right? So it's an O. So if it's an O, it's going to be an oh sound, right? So hot.
Rounded?
Yeah, this one.
But you can hear in the pronunciation in North America that the lack of familiarity with this word means it's hypersensitive to influence by coffee. The very similarly shaped neighboring word that clearly has an aw and probably a raised one.
How about Hoffman?
Hoffman.
Is that what the aw sound?
No, I could easily say Hoffman as well. I think this is another one where you'll see some variation, and this is something that's not unusual, right? When a merger happens, merged speakers or even non-merged speakers in this merged environment are not always clear what the original sound was. Because, native speakers don't really have access to the etymological history of a given word. Once upon a time, before the merger took place, everyone agreed, this word has this vowel in it, this word has this vowel in it. Once they merge, it's really not clear which one was original. It's not clear which one should be there. And so, like, for me, I have these two vowels, but I never natively really learned the word toffee. I guess I'm going to go with aw. I guess I'm putting a flag down. Toffee is the vowel. And so you can hear the hesitation when I came to that word. I was like, what is the actual vowel in this word? Which of my two variants is this? Because there's a decent chance that I heard this word from someone who's merged. And so I'm not actually getting the information necessary to parse it out.
I guess my question is like when, like how did it change, and like if there's any way to predict which one goes where? Because for example, I think you gave this example like a long time ago, but like you get dog, but then you get hog, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So those are spelled basically the same, but they're different vowels, hog and dog, whereas in the UK, it'd be hog and dog, exactly the same vowel, this rounded sound. But yeah, why is it like that?
This is actually, in a sense, it's similar to what we talked about before with received pronunciation English being London English and American English, say, not being. Because this same variation does actually occur in the northern parts of England. Etymologically, historically, going back to Middle English, Old English, these words should rhyme. They really should. They did in Middle and Old English. But only in a given dialect will that be true. If two words are inherited from Middle English into London English, we expect them, if they rhymed here, we expect them to rhyme here, even if the nature of that rhyme changes, right? But what if one of them comes from London English, and one of them comes from Manchester, and one of them comes from Wessex, and suddenly they might not all behave parallel anymore, because the standard form is actually mixing different dialectal forms.
Oh, is that why we have berry spelled like B-U-R-Y but pronounced berry?
As opposed to
bury, you know?
Because that's another whole merger we haven't talked about. The merry merger of M-E-R-R-Y, M-U-R-R-A-Y.
You mean Ferry Hurry?
Yeah,
it's Ferry Hurry.
I am completely merged in that respect.
No, because in standard English, it's bury, to bury someone, right? To bury someone.
Versus like bury.
Yeah,
almost.
It's not bury. There's no bury in standard
English.
Yeah,
I have to kind of affect it to make it happen.
I mean, a lot of my students will say bury because it looks like it should be spelled that way. I mean,
and obviously, once upon a time, right, going back into Middle English, these are like beria and burian.
Yeah.
But that hasn't been true.
So it was spelled with an E?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Because I heard...
Or kind of with an ash, I think, originally, actually. Like
berian
versus burian. But...
So I heard this, I'm not sure where I heard this from, but it might be like a folk etymology or something. But like, I heard that it's spelled B-U-R-Y, and it's pronounced berry, because we took the pronunciation from one dialect into standard English, standard British English at that point, and then the spelling from another dialect. And also, I think this might be the same thing for won't and will. I'm not sure. Maybe you can correct me if you know. But what I've heard or what I've speculated, I can't remember because it's been so long. But like will used to be willant, and then in another dialect it was wool. And then became won't, but then we took won't from here, and we took will from there, the positive here and the negative here, and that's why it's will and won't. So
that's more or less true. It's more or less true. These forms in older English, going back to like Old English, proper Old English, right? These would be something like ich wille, I will, but ich ne wille. And this, you can hear the ne's at the beginning, right? Okay. Then in Middle English, we start to get the ne is going to be at the end, so it can contract. And so you'll get something like ich will, but ich willn't.
Okay.
And because this now is like a super heavy syllable, right? There's an L, there's an N, there's a T, maybe there's a schwa in there. It's going to have an impact on the vowel that precedes it. This is originally wille, the will, to want something. But the addition of this negative particle that's kind of attached itself to the end affects the pronunciation of it a little bit. It affects it more in some dialects than others. And you can end up with situations where the words almost entirely diverge. I mean, everyone today understands that won't is a negation of will. But without knowing the etymology, I think most people would be pressed to explain how or why.
Wait, so are you saying this is just a phonological shift and not a regional dialect?
It's both. It's a phonological shift that happens from the attachment of NT, but then different dialects go in different directions with it.
So there was a dialect where they said willant as opposed to
in early Middle English, every dialect did. And then they each, as this word univerbated, kind of became one word more and more and more, they all kind of went in slightly different directions with how to jam it all together into one word.
Wait, so that's a term? Univerbated? That's an actual word?
Univerbation, the phenomenon of multiple words becoming one word.
I love that. It's interesting, okay, so they had different forms, and so we did take it from different
Yeah.
dialects.
And this is actually a really common process in modern, like standard Englishes in general. So much about why English spelling is, well, we'll talk about spelling a little bit more later, but one of the causes of English spelling becoming as goofy as it is that we just kind of grabbed words from different dialects that treated originally different sounds really differently. So the classic example of this is all of these bizarre GHs at the end of English words that seem to do either nothing or sometimes maybe go F, like laugh or cough.
Because
Right?
in German, it's lachen, right?
So we know that in Old English, all of these GHs represented a sound basically identical to the German CH, ch or ch.
Was it, or was it the voiced version?
There was no difference, but it represented a velar fricative of some sort.
Wait, this is Old English.
Yeah, so like
Old English didn't have voiced certain voiced sounds, right? Like they were allophonic.
Yes,
So,
there was allophonic variation originally.
wolf
and
and,
then-
wulbas, right?
Yeah.
Okay, right.
So like in Old English, this word laugh would have been lachen,
Okay.
right? Just like German lachen
Yep.
goes right with it. And you can hear that this GH, the reason it's there, they didn't just love slapping GHs into random words, right? The reason that it's there is because it represented a sound that was originally there. Just like English through, Through-gh.
Yep.
This is Old English thurch,
Surch.
with a nice ch. The GH, it's there, it does something.
Yep.
Night, N-I-G-H-T, nicht, just like German nicht, right?
The older you get, the more
The more
Germanic
similar
sounding
these
it is.
languages become, right?
I've shown a lot of my students like older English. They're like, that sounds like German. Yeah, it sounds like German.
It does indeed. You should hear Frisian if you want to hear that.
Yeah.
That's English's closest related sister. It's spoken on some little islands up north.
Unless you count Scots, right?
Yes, unless you count Scots. But this GH sound, this h-like sound, eventually it's lost. Obviously, it doesn't really survive in any modern English forms except Scots, actually. Yeah. But in northern forms of English, so further up north you go in the British Isles, it actually changes to an F.
Yep.
So you will get laugh and cough, but also thurf for through.
Thurf?
Thurf.
Oh, interesting.
Now this is pretty rare these days. This is a like ancestral, hanging on by its fingernails kind of pronunciation in regional area. Like it's not common at all.
Yeah.
But what these like farmers out in the countryside speaking incredibly rare dialects of English tell us is, well, there were forms of English that lost this entirely, right, and gave us through, and ko, and lao for cough and laugh.
Oh,
they lost it
God,
entirely,
it's so
right?
hard to understand, right?
And then there were other ones that said thurf and laugh and cough, and our modern English takes its through and its night from dialects that have lost this entirely, but takes its laugh and its cough from dialects that switched to F.
Interesting. Wow.
One of the many causes of English spelling being sort of nightmarish, especially for second language learners.
Yeah. I have a lot of students who, they look at the word and they assume a certain, it should be like spelt this way, or, because it's spelled this way, it should be pronounced this way, especially with the S's, like sometimes the S's are Z's and sometimes they're S's. Is there any way to predict that, or is that just like historical chance?
There are ways to predict it, sort of. There are truisms, axioms you can learn that will be true like 80% of the time. Yeah. There are no ways to predict it 100% of the time, unfortunately, no. And
is that because it's kind of arbitrary, the spelling?
It's because there are multiple different, sometimes conflicting causes for a given spelling to be the case. Okay. So, for example, an S between two vowels is often going to be pronounced like a Z.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the reason for that, as you pointed out, is that in Old English, consonants between vowels usually voiced.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you put, like bath, but bathe.
Yep.
Great, because this is Old English bath, badyan. Yep. Okay, awesome. Why does house have an E? House has an E, but it's not house. Notice there is a verb to house someone. Why? Because this E is spurious. It is not part of the original word. This is Old English hus. There is no vowel there.
So people just added it in?
Yes, the E was tacked on because people got confused about what words had E's on them and which ones didn't.
Oh.
And the result is that now some English words have an E that tells you there originally used to be like a suffix here, like bathian, bathe.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And some, like house, have an E that is, I got confused about which words were spelled with E's.
Oh, and is this from like a grassroots sort of level? Like
Yes.
people, just ordinary peasants, didn't know how to spell it?
So
or-
once we reached the point
Yep.
where the E at the end was no longer pronounced,
Yep.
right? So once bathian became badhya, became bath, it wasn't clear to speakers why bath didn't have an E, but bathe did. Because the suffix that this E represented was gone. And so if you can't tell why bathe has an E, maybe you can't tell whether house has one either. Because it's no longer clear where this suffix appears and where it doesn't. You're not pronouncing it anymore, it's gone, right? It's only left over in the spelling. And so if you're going through words and saying like, okay, does this word have an E at the end of it? You don't really know. Today, when we learn English spelling, you just have to learn which words are spelled with E's and which ones aren't. There's no rhyme or reason. Unless someone tells you, point blank, this is how it works. It's easy to make a mistake.
But sometimes the spelling does help, because there's a thing that I teach, which I like to call, well, I've heard called the Bossy E rule, but I like to expand it to not just the letter E, but all vowels. If you have a single, if you have a vowel, and then you have a consonant, a single consonant, usually it's a sound or even the spelling, the letter of a single consonant, and then another vowel, the first vowel tends to like say its own name. So you have a consonant and vowel, like what's
Bite.
Oh, that's I. So bite, or okay has okay and another vowel a, or COVID. Other words like mute has ute, or mutate, and so that is a pattern, and that's because of the Great Vowel Shift. Is that right, or am I wrong?
It's not the Great Vowel Shift proper, but it's one of the handful of changes that happened around that time. This specific one you're describing is the lengthening of stressed vowels and open syllables. This is why this pattern you're describing, a vowel and then a consonant, but only one, and then another vowel, because it creates a vowel, probably in a stressed syllable, that's open, and you get this lengthening, right?
Okay,
This is why we get bath and bathe. In Old English, bath, badhian, they're the same vowel, but in Middle English, bath, bathen, the lengthening that occurs in the open syllable there.
And so when it lengthens, what happens?
So in Old English, it literally just lengthened. The long vowels were just articulated longer than the short ones. But then you kind of brought up one of the great. I hesitate to call it a tragedy, but for people trying to learn English as a second language, maybe great tragedies. The Great Vowel Shift. Because the Great Vowel Shift, which is one of the really, really significant sound changes that happened in the history of English, affected its long and short vowels really differently. In fact, it didn't really affect its short vowels almost at all. It only affected the long vowels, but it rotated every single one of them in place. And as a result...
And let's pause here and let's talk about the long vowels. Which ones are they and which ones are the short vowels?
So in Old English, the long vowels would have been, I guess, should I use the modern English like A?
Yeah, let's do that.
So this would be like A, E, oo.
O?
Yeah, O basic. Today O is kind of a diphthong, but yeah, O is fine there. And probably let's go with in some cases today, but not all of them. In Old English, these were quite literally just the longer version. So this would be like, E, not E. Oo, not oo.
And length it doesn't matter in American English much.
It's no longer contrastive. It is certainly true that the vowels we call long are actually longer than their short counterparts. E is longer than I, but the length is no longer it's no longer the tell. It's no longer the thing people really pick up on. The quality of the vowel.
It's not the fundamental quality.
It's become a kind of secondary acoustic feature of these vowels. And so...
that's important because a lot of my students actually think that, for example, E is just a longer form of I, but then they can't pronounce I, so they think it's E and E or something like that. So I have to teach them. It's
and in 1066, they would have been right. But these days, but before the Great Vowel Shift, that would have been true. But it hasn't been true in English
1066 when William the Conqueror...
I use that as a handy breakpoint. We often use that as the delineation between Old and Middle English. Obviously, it's more complicated than that. But so this process we were talking about of lengthening vowels, it kind of feeds into the Great Vowel Shift because it creates some new long vowels. And if you have two short vowels and then one of them lengthens, and then the Great Vowel Shift takes that long vowel and makes it go hog wild, you can end up with vowels like bath and bathe, where one word, clearly one word, one root has to be, right? Its vowels are completely different. They're totally pulled apart from each other.
Wait, explain again why it's bath and bathe.
So let's go back to before William the Conqueror.
Is this related to natural and nature?
It's the same phenomenon,
and
yeah.
ration and nation and national. It's the same phenomenon.
Because
my Russian students always say national, and they say Russian-speaking students, they say national and nation because they think it's it's the same thing, right? It's nation and national, nature, and they think it's natural, but it's not. It's natural. So this is
in Old English. We'll go back before William the Conqueror, right? These two words, the ancestors of modern English, bath at the noun and bathe, the verb, like to bathe oneself. These both contain the same vowel, a. Right? Bath, badian. Right? Great. It's a noun and then a noun with a suffix on it that forms a verb, and the verb means to make someone do or be something. To make someone bath. That's what bathe means, right? It works great. Okay, then we get into kind of the late Old English, early Middle English period, and we get this lengthening that you're talking about. So rather than bath and bathian, we get bath, badian.
So it's longer.
The stressed vowel is longer now. We would write it with like a little macron over it.
Sorry, tell me again, what's causing this lengthening?
In late Old English or early Middle English more broadly, stressed vowels in open syllables lengthen uniformly.
Oh, so bath because it's like it's closed.
Bath is closed, so it's unaffected.
So it has a C, V, and C. So it's a consonant vowel and ends in the consonant in that syllable.
So it's exempt from this rule. The rule looks at it, tosses it right out. But badian,
it's ba, the, an. So it's an open syllable.
And so it gets lengthening. And so in early Middle English, you'll have bath, or maybe by this point bath, because the fronting is starting to occur. So something like, say, bath, badian. Still pretty similar. The lengthening has made them a little different, but I think most people could visually, like audibly, they sound similar. But then what happens is this great vowel shift, this sound change wherein all of the long vowels, the tense vowels of English move. They change their articulatory quality. And so the a, long a, becomes a, shifts all the way up to a. And so now bath has its counterpart not as bathian, but as bathian.
Interesting.
And as the suffix, we no longer have this causative suffix, gets lost, you get bath and bathe.
Okay.
Now, again, I think most people can tell that those words are related. It's not like it's impossible. But what is the nature of the relationship between them? It's incredibly opaque in English today. And the reason for that is this great vowel shift. It takes a lot of words that originally had pretty clear relationships between them, totally obliterates them, and really importantly, and really unhelpfully for anyone trying to learn how to spell in English, especially second language speakers, the great vowel shift happens after English spelling becomes
standardized.
I hesitate to use the word standardized, but more standardized, right? English spelling becomes at least settled enough that when vowels completely change their quality, we don't change the spelling. Right? So if you've ever wondered why in European languages more broadly, right, the letter I usually makes the sound E. That's what it made in Latin. That's what iota makes in Greek. That's what, right, it's Spanish, Italian, German, right? It's pretty normal. And then in English, it often makes the sound I, like in high or wide or wise. Well, the reason for that is that once upon a time, English was just like every other European language. And the letter I made the sound E, just like in wisan, to know something wise, right? Or like hidian, to hide something, right? It did that. When English speakers adopted the Latin alphabet, it's not like they heard, Latin or Irish Gaelic speakers saying, this letter goes E, and they said, nah, screw that, we're going to make it do something totally different, right? They borrowed these vowels in basically the functions they heard them. The problem is they borrowed those vowels, they assigned them to words, and then like every word in the language changed the quality of its vowel overnight.
That's
And
right.
so this E vowel undergoes this rapid shift to I. It like obliterates the spelling, although it's worth noting, this also happened in German, quite unrelatedly.
Really?
The same way that oo, or what's spelled OU in English, sometimes goes ow,
Yeah.
right? Like mouse or
Yep.
house. This is Old English mus and hus, right?
Yep.
With nice oo in them.
Yep.
It undergoes this exact same shift after the spelling kind of sets in place. But this definitely happened in German because this is German Haus and Maus.
They but they update their spelling.
Yes, they thankfully no longer spell this like it's hus and moose.
But the Dutch still have.
Yes, the
Hus,
the
right?
Dutch have a more archaic
They have who's
spelling.
Right?
Yeah,
Who's.
and so it's not like German and English did this together. The Great Vowel Shift and sort of the High German
And the
vowel shifts
parallel.
were but they're parallel because Germanic languages for a long time have been trying to figure out their comparatively cluttered vowel systems. Your students, if they speak other languages than English, are probably struck by how many vowel sounds English has. It has a lot of them.
Yeah,
right?
Germanic languages have a lot.
They have a
of
ton
vowels.
of them.
I think we have 15-ish, and then maybe more. But Danish, right, has 20 or so,
Yep.
and they all have allophones. They have 20 phonemes, but each of the phonemes have multiple allophones as well. So it's more like
And
25,
so for like
30.
thousands of years, Germanic languages have been undergoing these kinds of change shifts, mergers, disruptions to the vowel system that are trying to build something a little more stable, a little less complicated, a little easier to learn, frankly. And it's really persistent. German underwent a shift. Danish underwent a shift. The Great Vowel Shift happened, back in the day, and now in North America, we're undergoing a bunch of vowel shifts again. All of our different dialects are undergoing vowel shifts, all to try to build a stable vowel system.
Yeah.
It's been a 1,000-year enterprise for the Germanic languages to try to do.
Well, simpler. I like the simpler ones. That's why I teach the Western American accent.
Yeah.
Yeah.